Cytus. Cytus is known as a rhythm game with colorful artwork, difficult charts, and an enormous amount of music. But underneath the notes and songs are dozens of strange secrets, Easter eggs, removed content, bugs, theories, and community mysteries. So, today we're going down to the Cytus Iceberg. We'll start with things that are relatively easy to discover and eventually reach the bottom where things become increasingly obscure, speculative, and downright bizarre. So, this is the Cytus Iceberg. Let's dive in. Some Cytus songs contain hidden versions or special charts that aren't immediately visible from the normal song selection screen. A famous example involves precipitation where a special interaction can reveal another chart. This is one of the reasons Cytus players sometimes experimented with unusual gestures instead of simply tapping the songs normally. This one sounds like a conspiracy theory, but it actually turned out to be true. DJ Mashiro was originally presented as a separate artist. However, 3R2 later revealed that DJ Mashiro was essentially an alternate identity. Cytus 2 made the connection even more obvious by using the credit as 3R2 as DJ Mashiro. So yes, the mysterious DJ Mashiro wasn't actually a completely separate musician. TBWL is another piece of Cytus trivia that players have noticed because of its music similarity. To the music Tetris theme. The idea is that the parts of the melody resemble the famous theme, making it sound like Cytus is sneaking a Tetris reference into a soundtrack. This entry is primarily a musical observation from the community, rather than important piece of Cytus lore. The idea behind this entry is that the events of Chapter K can be interpreted as a dream or story being experienced by its characters. The final song is especially important to this interpretation, which wise fans connected to the chapter's strange atmosphere and storyline with the idea of a dream. It's better treated as a interpretation of the story rather than a complete confirmed explanation. Before Cytus version 7.0, several older charts existed in forms that are different from the charts many players know today. Version 7.0 introduced a number of chart revisions, meaning some older players remember earlier versions of the song differently. This is particularly interesting for people who played Cytus during its early years, because the charts themselves have a history. La Place contains a tiny gaming reference. The iceberg points toward the artwork and specifically the title area where players can interpret a small detail as a Pac-Man reference. It's another sample of Cytus artwork hiding little things that aren't immediately obvious. In the artwork for Entrance, there's a strange repeated word, give money. If you look closely around the circular design formed by the wings that the word appears repeatedly, is essentially an artwork Easter egg. The kind of tiny detail that you'd probably never notice unless someone pointed out. Green Eyes, Blue Eyes, and Red Eyes form a small musical connection. All these three songs were composed by Persuna, making the Three Eyes songs something of a mini-series within Cytus. It's a pretty simple connection, but it's easy to miss if you're only looking at individual songs. This is the one of those classic Cytus artwork discussions. The character depicted in Future World has led to debate about the character's gender and identity. The Iceberg presents the claim that the character is actually a male. However, this is another entry where it's important to distinguish community interpretation from firmly established canon. The Rude Sandstorm appearing in DRG. Players have noticed similarities between certain sounds in DRG. And sounds associated with Sandstorm. The similarity isn't necessarily a direct use of the entire song. It's more about the recognizable electronic sound elements. Basically, the Iceberg is asking, did you hear Sandstorm hiding in Cytus? Set Free has a strange visual trick involving the character's mask. With extremely precise timing during the song selection interaction, players can manipulate the animation so that the Cyborg's mask appears fully in place. It's not an additional song or secret story chapter. It's basically a weird little visual interaction. In the old chapter L charts, the last digit of the note count corresponds to the song. For example, L1's old chart ends with a note whose final digit is 1, and L3 ends in 3, and so on. L10 is the exception because its final digit is 0. Chapter L actually has a large collection of old hidden charts, and the game's wiki documents this numbering pattern. This is hidden directly inside Chapter R. The songs have alternate short names displayed on their icons. If you take the first letters of those names in order, they spell SHOTA for EVER. It's an inside reference connected to Ice, the creator of Chapter R. Reference itself uses a internet term associated with sexualized depictions of young-looking characters, so we'll leave it at that rather than getting into terms broader meaning. The important point is that the message is genuinely hidden in the chapter song names. Also, Ice has been called out for being a pedophile. This is where Cytus history gets complicated. When Chapter L was released, its charts were notoriously difficult, and the chapter was also unusually expensive. Later, RayArc released revised charts. The original difficult charts weren't simply deleted. They became hidden charts that players could still access. The Cytus wiki records that the old charts were moved into hidden versions after version 9.1 following complaints about their difficulty. The Iceberg connects this change to controversy involving Ice, the chapter's composer. So this entry is less about a secret code and more about Cytus' development history and the debate surrounding Chapter L's original charts. Here's one for players who experience old Cytus versions. In version 6.1, clearing Mega Era could cause serious problems. The game could crash after completing the song, and there was also a bug involving the Million Master animation. The official update history records the Mega Era bug, and later updates fixed it. So if you managed to play Mega Era back, then without encountering the problem, congratulations! You survived one of Cytus' stranger bugs. What? So, if you manage to complete the Mega Era song and get the Million Master, the animation won't appear. Yeah, that was weird in my opinion. I would try to play it, but this literally annoys me. Qualia has an unusual artwork secret. If the device's colors are inverted, the spherical object in the artwork can be interpreted as resembling Earth. This is one of those visual secrets where changing how you view the artwork reveals something that isn't obvious normally. It's also a clever connection to the word qualia, which relates to subjective experience and perception. Magical Musical Master has an unusual history. It's connected to VIT Master, a Cytus Chapter R song by Cycuzio, if I'm pronouncing that name right. In fact, the Cytus wiki identifies VIT Master as an alternate remade form of Magical Musical Master, with the later version using a non-chiptune arrangement. So what looks like two completely separate songs actually has a direct relationship. The girl associated with Psychic can supposedly be spotted within the artwork for Orients. She's easy to overlook because she's incorporated into the background rather than being the main focus. It's essentially a character cameo hidden inside another song's artwork. Some Cytus charts are unusual because they make much greater use of the available screen space. Myosotis and the Secret Freedom Dive chart are examples mentioned by the Iceberg. Instead of looking conventional Cytus patterns, these charts can create very unusual note arrangements across the screen. They're especially memorable to rhythm game players because of how different they feel from ordinary charts. It's a Wonderful World sounds cheerful from its title, but the actual song is much darker. The song explores a world filled with violence, corruption, and other disturbing aspects of humanity. Its artwork and music video also contribute to the unsettling atmosphere. The Cytus wiki identifies it as a Chapter 6 song by Hamo and notes that its meaning contrasts strongly with its cheerful sounding title. Honestly, I thought the title would be like a cheerful and the song would be a little bit nicer. What I expect. Here's a much more uncertain one. Star is a composer and musician associated with many Cytus songs. Fans have speculated that he also performs some of the vocals in his own songs, because they believe they can recognize similarities in his speaking voice and the vocal performances. However, this is not something I'd present as a confirmed fact. The Iceberg itself labels this as too difficult to confirm. Chapter Symphony apparently had songs that were planned or associated with the project, but didn't end up being included in the final chapter. The Iceberg specifically points to three unused songs. This is the sort of information that's interesting because it gives us a glimpse into what Cytus would have looked like during development. The Riddle Story is a Chapter 3 song. The Iceberg puts it here mostly because of its strange history among Cytus players. The song itself is well liked, but the original chart has been criticized by players who believe it should have received the kind of revision that the older charts received. So the mystery isn't really the song itself. It's more about its place in Cytus' old chart history. This one crosses over into another rhythm game community. Freedom Dive has multiple difficult charts in Cytus, while the famous community-made rhythm game versions of Freedom Dive also became notorious for their difficulty. The Iceberg suggests that Cytus' secret chart may reference the structure associated with one of those community maps. This is more of a fan interpretation reference theory than something officially confirmed by Ray Ark. Selfish Genie contains a mysterious doll-like figure in its artwork. The Iceberg interprets that figure as having originally been a child. There's no major gameplay mechanic attached to this. It's primarily an artwork interpretation, which is why it has been pushed deeper into the Iceberg. This one involves Apollo's manifold and its musical connections. Fans notice that the track incorporates elements associated with songs such as Old Gold, Libera Me, and Conflict. From this, the Iceberg connects the remix to the idea that it could have originally been intended for Chapter M. But this should be treated as developed history speculation rather than established canon. Before certain Cytus content was finalized, Ray Ark sometimes showed early gameplay footage. The Iceberg remembers an early preview associated with Infinite Fields. What's interesting isn't simply that an early version existed, it's that the gameplay footage apparently showed an unusual section where the player missed notes and people around them reacted. It's basically a tiny piece of Cytus development history preserved through an older video. Some fans believe the girl in Biotonic from the original Cytus resembles PAFF from Cytus 2. The similarities people point to include her long hair and the appearance of her eyes. However, there is no strong evidence that the character was literally intended to be PAFF. So this is best described as a visual resemblance theory, not confirmed lore. This one claims that Cytus somehow predicted the COVID-19 pandemic. Players have noticed various imagery, names, or coincidences and connected them to the pandemic years later. But there is no evidence that Cytus actually predicted COVID-19. The original Iceberg creator even described this as having no real proof or reason to be there. So this belongs firmly in the fun theory category. Meteo died in Guatemala. There isn't some secret canonical event where Meteo travels to Guatemala. This is essentially a bizarre community joke. That's the entire point. The deeper Iceberg gets, the less the entries necessarily to make sense. Mandara is a real Ray art game and even appears as an Easter egg in Cytus artwork. But the Iceberg takes that innocent connection and turns it into a ridiculous theory. What if Mandara is actually the disastrous virus? There isn't evidence for this. It's simply an intentionally obscure what if theory. Every chapter is personalized. The idea is that every Cytus chapter somehow represents as a different personality, emotion, or experience. Well, this is inspired partly by the old internet concept that a copy of a game can somehow be different or personalized for that player. There isn't evidence that Cytus actually changes its chapters according to the individual player. So think of this as a creepy interpretation of the Cytus atmosphere, not a real game mechanic. This is where the Iceberg completely embraces absurdity. According to the joke, Chapter L was released and somehow caused a singularity. Obviously, Cytus releasing a music chapter did not create a real cosmic singularity. It's basically an exaggerated joke about how strange and dramatically Chapter L story and artwork can feel. EK the Prophet. What does it mean? Well, that's the joke. According to the original Iceberg discussion, EK the Prophet was an inside joke from the Cytus Wiki Discord community. There isn't some secret character named EK who predicts the future of Cytus. It's a simply extremely obscure community reference, and honestly, that's probably the perfect way to end the Cytus Iceberg. One thing, EK known as Eugene Koa is a Cytus one-handed master that he plays Cytus 2 and Figuros with one hand, especially Demo and Project Sakai and then Chunitim. Well, I mean, that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching, I guess, though. I don't know how to, make an outro.